My name is Roma Lois. I'm president of Teamsters Joint Council 7, and our Joint Council is the jurisdiction that Taylor Farms works within, and all of these workers behind me work for Taylor Farms, or one of the two labor contractors that supply Taylor Farms. We thank you so much for being here. We're here to discuss Assemblyman Hernandez's bill 1897 that he helped get through the Assembly in the last week and is starting through the Senate as of yesterday. Came out of the Labor Committee and will go to Judicial in the next week or so. This is an urgently important bill. You'll hear some of the workers at Taylor Farms talk about the abuse and the neglect that they see on a daily basis. It's like having a sliver of Alabama in the turn of the century in the Central Valley. And you will hear from a number of the workers and from Art Pulaski and from Assemblyman Hernandez, and then our General President Hoffa. So I'd like to introduce Art Pulaski, Executive Secretary of the State Federation.
Thank you, Roma Lois. I'm Art Pulaski, California Labor Federation. I first have to thank and acknowledge the workers. We could not be doing this without the courage and the strength of the workers here today from Taylor Farms, who have had the courage to stand up for themselves and each other, and to be part of their attempts to be part of the American dream, if not for themselves, at least for their children. Now, in the quest for higher profits, companies have come up with, make sure that we're not banging here, hold on one sec. Okay. The quest for higher profits, companies have come up with a new management scheme. It's a new business model, and the new business model squeezes the workers in order to bring more money to the bottom line. Now, you can squeeze the workers in a legal way, and you can squeeze the workers in an illegal way. The primary thing that these employers are doing is going to a subcontracted workforce. Subcontracting is not in itself an illegal act, but what it leads to is very problematic for the workforce. This is happening at Taylor Farms. Is happening across the state of California and across the country. By virtue of going with a contractor for the workforce, you are creating a temporary workforce. When you create a temporary workforce, you create a disposable workforce. Every worker who works for this temporary contractor is considered disposable. And that means that when they choose to stand up to protect in the interest of their rights, their legal rights, they get kicked out the back door like that. And that's a message to the other workers: don't stand up for your legal rights in this place of employment, because if you do, we'll fire your butt right away. So Taylor Farms is a good example of this, because at Taylor Farms you've got two contractors that are hiring many of the workers there. They're hiring workers to come to the primary employer's work site. They're hiring workers to work, to do the primary work of the employer's work. And typically they're hiring the workers to work on the employer's machinery. Yet when something goes wrong, when now it does, because contracted work means a race to the bottom. Contracted work means cutting back wages because it's a temporary workforce. It means typically a violation of the workers' rights. Sometimes you don't get your break. Sometimes you don't get your meal period. Sometimes you work 16 hours in the day, and guess what? Without overtime pay. Sometimes you're working with hazards at work that create more injuries. We've heard from the Department of Labor, the U.S. Secretary of Labor, that the latest statistics are the highest increase in worksite deaths are based on people who are contracted temporary workers who come in the first day or the second day. They're damaged or killed by a machine because they don't have the correct training, or kill someone else. That's another example of the problem with this contracted work. Discrimination against women, discrimination of civil rights, loss of wage and hour violations. There are so many things that happen as a result of contracted work and the race to the bottom of contractors. And then when somebody says, I've been hurt on the job, where do I go? The primary employer says, well, it's not me, go to them. But then you have multiple contractors representing the workers there. You don't even know which contractor to go to when you get hurt on the job. A lot of times there isn't even workers' comp, which is of course a state requirement, covering those workers when they get injured on the job. Now this is happening not just at Taylor Farms. This is happening across industries, across sectors, in manufacturing, from healthcare to hospitality, in hotels, with security guards, at Apple, at Google. Everywhere you go, you see the primary employers in manufacturing hiring contracted workforces. There's a race to the bottom, which means there's no more opportunity to be a part of the middle class when you're a temporary worker. These folks are temporary workers permanently. That's why we call them permatemps, because they can work for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and still be considered at the same location with the same employer, and still be considered temporary disposable workforce. And so we have this bill. You're about to meet Assemblyman Hernandez, the author of the bill, 1897, which says that no longer can a primary employer brings people onto their work site, do their primary work with their machinery, say, oh no, it's not me any longer. They have to share in the responsibility. They have to share in the legal liability. And that's what this is all about, is to protect those workers among not just Taylor Farms, but across all those industries, across all those sectors, not only in California, but across the nation. This is a fight for the middle class. It's my honor to introduce to you Roger Hernandez, Assembly Member, Chair of the Labor Committee, and author of the bill, AB 1897. Roger Hernandez.
Good morning, buenos dias, brothers and sisters. How are we today? I want to thank you all so much for coming out today. President Hoffa, I want to thank you for honoring us with your presence, honoring us with your leadership and strength. I also want to thank the Teamsters for leading the charge on this very important fight that we have before us, not just in California, but we know that this is a problem that persists on the national level. As chair of the Assembly Labor Committee, I see it as part of my mission to take on systemic, widespread business models that are designed to keep the workers down. Last year, with Assembly Bill 263, we took on employers who used immigration status as a weapon to silence and intimidate workers. We could not have achieved this landmark legislation without the help of Teamsters. Let's give the Teamsters a big round of applause. And this year, we have an even bigger fight on our hands. With Assembly Bill 1897, we are taking on a business model that relies heavily on labor contractors to confuse workers and evade responsibility for labor laws. California's middle class is eroding because of this business model. We must put an end to this before greed finishes the people and labor who have fought so hard for the access to a middle class reality. I'm proud to fight for your right to good wages, your right to benefits, and for helping maintain middle class. In particular, I want to thank the workers at Taylor Farms for your courage in standing up against this form of abuse. You really represent what's going on at the ground zero level. Thank you so much for your courage. Absolutely. Thank you. You know, a lot of folks have said to me, Roger, this bill is too broad. Roger, this is going too far. Roger, this isn't real. People can sue. Roger, the laws are already there to protect workers. But I have been at the picket line, firsthand witnessing what is happening to workers at Taylor Farms in Tracy, California, and workers up and down the state of California that are being abused by this model of supplanting the everyday workforce and supplanting it with a workforce that has a temporary status, that has a labeling that suggests to the worker, you don't have full rights. And when it's time to complain about working conditions, and if you dare complain about working conditions or your overtime wages, then maybe perhaps it's time to bring in the temporary workers from agency number B. And that's a race to the bottom. It is destroying and eroding our middle class. It is eviscerating the pathway to middle class. And we can't afford to have this in California. We've heard all too often that the middle class is shrinking, but as we're rebounding now from the recession, we're hearing that the 1% is seeing the true vibrance and rebirth of the economic healing and the rebirth. The working people of California are not seeing. Most Californians are not seeing a benefit of the recovery. Most Californians are going back to jobs at 1989 level pay. 1999 level, we do not have household mortgages, the cost of food, the cost for consumption in California is not at 1899 levels. We cannot sustain workers going back to unsustainable wages, unsustainable working conditions. That's why 1897 is critical. We need to make sure that these models that are designed at keeping the workers down, that are disrupting the middle class way of life, is put to a stop. And that employers that use these models only and solely for the purpose of skirting responsibility, their obligation responsibility workers, that we put a stop to it with 1897. We can't do this alone. With your help, with the community's help, we're going to get the message to all the members of the legislature, and your voices will be heard by the governor's office that this legislation is critical, not just to the workers at Taylor Farms, not just to the workers at Marquez and other parts in the state, but this is critical to maintain the American dream, access to the middle class, and to stop shrinking the working poor. That's unfair. It's unjust. We deserve better. Sorry, NBC, I think your mic fell a little bit here. We need your leadership, and we need to hear from the workers, and that's why I'm so proud to have the courageous voices and leadership of the workers at Taylor Farms in Tracy, California. We're going to be hearing from Armida Galeana, who works with a staffing agency that provides the subcontracted workforce to Taylor Farms. So Armida, if you'll please come up and join me. Armida Serna, if you'll please come up, share your story. And we're also going to be hearing from Jose Gonzalez, who has been a temp worker. Listen to this one. We're going to also be hearing from Jose Gonzalez, who has been a temporary worker at Taylor Farms. Not for 10 days, not for 10 weeks, for 10 years. That's a temporary worker? I think not. Let's hear from both of them now. Let's start with Jose, please. Jose Gonzalez, please come and join us.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Jose Gonzalez, and I've been a temp worker my whole life. I would like to share a little piece of my life with you. My whole working career, I've been a temporary worker and an at-risk employee at the disposal of these labor contractors my whole life. I will never see benefits or wage increases or any type of advancements or any type of wage increases or benefits. I will never be able to have the fruits of my labor because Taylor Farms sells it. This law and this bill that's going to happen is going to have a lot of people hold a lot of responsibility and accountability for everything that they've done. I've witnessed a lot of people go through a lot of things and struggles and being hurt at work, and none of these companies take responsibility. I have a problem, I go to Taylor Farms. They tell me I need to go to Slingshot, but Quality Farms is the laborers who pay me. That's 3 people I have to deal with in order to get one simple question answered. A lot of these people who've been at Taylor Farms have been through a lot of ridicule, a lot of retaliation, threatened. This is America, where every person, no matter how or what they believe in, color, race, anything, this is their right to pursue their happiness. And this company has no more than threatened them with retaliation, immigration status. All these people deserve what they're up here to deserve and what they fight for. I'm here to fight with them. I've been a temporary worker, like I said, my whole life. And when do I get the benefits of everybody else? I work for my child. It's not even for me anymore. And what do we have to give to them? This is the future. And working and without these bills being passed, the future stops here. So with your help and all your support, I hope this all goes through. Thank you. My name is Jose Gonzalez.
And next we're hearing from Susie. Please come up.
Good morning, everybody. I want to thank Roger Hernandez and the General President of the Teamster, Mr. Hoffa. I am a Taylor Farm worker for 6 years. Again, my name is Susie Cerna. These are working conditions that we are fighting for better pay, benefits, and working opportunities to get hired on. I have seen unsafe working conditions, food safety, and I have reported these issues. These things have been ignored through the company. This is enough. We want everybody to know that the struggle that we fight, what we want is a contract, a union contract. Thank you.
As you can see, this is an emotional event for the people at Taylor Farms because they're risking everything, being here, getting their picture taken, and being in front of the cameras when they know they go back to work and they're going to face abuse and discrimination for this. I'm on the General Executive Board with our General President Hoffa, and I have seen him pick up causes and fight for the people that need his help over and over and over again. When he heard about the Taylor Farms organizing and what's going on in the Central Valley of California with these temp agencies and how the employers use them to hide behind. They use them so that they can have their own workforce, which is small. A third of the Taylor Farms workforce are Taylor Farms employees. 2/3 work through the agencies or the labor contractors, if you will. And Taylor Farms hides behind them on immigration issues, on workman's comp issues, on the labor law, and these people continually are abused under the watchful eye of Taylor Farm supervisors. So when General President Hoffa heard this, he said, I'm coming out there. We've got to help push this bill forward. Last night we met with the governor. This morning a number of legislators met with us and talked about supporting this bill now through the Senate. So President Hoffa fights for those workers that need him to fight for them. He's here with us. He'll continue to be here with us. And I have a great pleasure and honor to introduce my General President, James Hoffa.
Thank you, Ron. Well, it's a great pleasure to be here and to be here in Sacramento on behalf of the Taylor Farms employees. And the message I bring today is that you have the support of the 1.4 million members of the Teamsters Union. You will be Teamsters. You will be in our group. You are our family. That will happen. We know about the abuses that we have seen, and it's unbelievable. And I want to thank Roger Hernandez for his great courage to introduce this bill. We have it through the Assembly. It's out of committee, and we are on our way to probably get it past the Senate. This is an important bill because it underlines a basic injustice that has happened in America. And here we have a number of people, all the people here are from and represent the problem we're talking about. Because there are people here from Taylor Farms, there are people here from Slingshot, and there are people here from Abel Mendoza. Every one of these represent different companies, but they all work at the same place. And the stories they tell are unbelievable. Stories that you'd think wouldn't be happening in America, where people are abused, people are intimidated. If you go to the union, you're written up the next day. You go from being an employee that never got written up to getting 10 write-ups out of the blue, all because you went to the union. That is intimidation, and that's got to end. We've got to end that. And they tell us stories about, conditions that are unsafe. Not enough toilets, not enough place. You eat lunch, there's no place to stand, there's not enough seats. things that you take and believe would be so basic to America today are really not there. And the intimidation, whether it's about your national origin, whether it's anything, that's got to end, and we've got to basically have justice here. But what they're doing is they're hiding behind these tips, these so-called temporary companies, like a Kelly Girl, but they call them Abel Mendoza, they call them Slingshot. So when you work there, they say, where do you work? Now you're all supervised by the same people, you basically do all the same work, and yet no matter what you say, oh, you don't work for us, you work for somebody else. And the most important thing here is that they have plenty of money. This is a very successful company. They have big clients. They have some of the top, it's like a Fortune 500 company. They have McDonald's, they have Walmart. They have the best companies that are making plenty of money. So it's greed that's holding them back. Taylor Farms, share the money, share the American dream. It's time to turn this around. We have got to basically pass this bill. But what it is today is to show you what's really going on in America. You know, we always talk about the American dream. How about we all want the American dream? Well, here we are right here in Tracy, right here in California, where we think this is the land of milk and honey. This is the beautiful California, and we see such injustice under our nose. This has got to end, and I ask the legislature here to end it by passing this bill. We can do it. We will be Teamsters, and we're going to win. That's what's happening. Now, today, we're going to have a rally over in Tracy. We're going to have hundreds of people there that are going to be there to support. But most importantly, you have heard from the people that actually work there. I don't work there. I hear what they say, but the stories they tell are unbelievable. One lady broke her leg and laid in water for half an hour, and no one would come to help her. They wouldn't do anything for her, like she was some piece of machinery. That has got to end. And we're going to all highlight those things at our rally, so I hope you'll all be there. We are going to win. The Teamsters always win. Thank you very much. On to victory!
Thank you. We'll take questions now.
We'll take questions if there's any questions at this time. No doubt that the pushback is present. It's a growing pushback. We have industries that are partaking in this use of subcontracting, supplanting the everyday workforce, that are asking for carve-outs, that are saying they don't want to be included in this legislation, that they don't want to be policed by this legislation. That's the kind of pushback that we're getting. What I'm seeing as the author of this legislation, and I know that the Teamsters leadership and the workers can attest, is that the opposition's ramping up. They're hiring more lobbyists across the street, spending millions of dollars to stop legislation that is seeking to defend and protect our middle class here, and to stop the growing working poor. We need to stop that, and that's why we're here today, to make sure that the public knows what's going on. We're doing something about protecting our middle class. 1897 is aimed at doing just that. Any other questions?
What other industries do you think will be immediately affected by the bill, and has anyone received the carve-out?
Well, I can tell you right now, it's many industries that are going to be affected. It's going to be the industries that are going to the temporary worker model, the independent worker model. It takes different forms and different names, but it's basically any industry that is supplanting their everyday workforce to carry out the everyday workings of their workforce, to hide away from the protections that are required under the law. So those that are going to be affected are those that are the bad actors, those that are stealing from their workers, not paying the wages to their workers, that are denying workers the labor protections under law today. Those are the industries that can be affected. Recently we had a hearing regarding the aviation industry, the below the wing workers in Los Angeles, following the unfortunate death of a worker that worked for Menzies Aviation at LAX. And industries like that want to bring in a workforce that's not properly trained, that's not properly compensated, that's not properly supported with appropriate equipment, safety equipment. It's the cheaters, the people that are undercutting the system, undercutting the law. Those are the folks that ought to be worried. This legislation is a job protection bill. You've got the chamber wanting to describe it or characterize it as a job killer. It's absolutely not a good job killer. It's a job protecting bill, because the majority of the industries out there want to do the right thing and are playing by the laws of the land, making sure that protections are there. But there are these bad actors that want to undercut for one reason and one reason only: greed, greed, greed. And that greed is causing the early deaths, unnecessary injuries, and wage theft, and discriminatory and retaliatory actions taken against workers in the name of greed. It could stop. It needs to stop. The communities, the industries that are driving this agenda can afford to pay their workers a just and fair wage. And I'm so proud that the Teamsters are here, work with the workers at Taylor Farms from Tracy, California, to let the people know that this is real. It's happening in California. They're bringing some illumination to this issue, and we want everybody to know what's going on. The public has a right to know.
The fact of the matter is, as Assemblyman Hernandez knows, this will not affect any agency that plays by the rules and follows state law. If an agency follows state laws and pays workmen's compensation, pays correctly, follows the rules, they're not going to be affected at all. But these labor contractors and some of these fly-by-night agencies, and they're popping up every day, refuse to pay by the rules and play by the rules. It's not only costing these workers, it's costing the state of California in taxes and revenue and everything else. So this isn't going to change a thing for those employers that play the game correctly. Just for those outlaw people that need to be taken care of. And once it goes through, you'll see the basic employer start managing these agencies, and the bad ones will be gone. That's what this is all about.
So, to the question, as I mentioned earlier, it's happening in so many sectors, from healthcare to hospitality. For example, more and more nurses are being hired through these agencies, which means a nurse comes into a hospital and isn't familiar with the proceedings in that hospital, doesn't have the relationship with the other healthcare providers. It could be a problem there. It's happening in manufacturing. It's happening in transportation. It's happening in the hotel you go to, both the food service and even the people who are changing the beds. It's happening in almost every industry we can think of, particularly those industries where we once said they're service industries, they're permanently here, but now employers are finding a way to make them non-permanent jobs, lowering wages. So in almost any sector of industry you can find, you've got people who thought they had an opportunity for the middle class now being considered disposable workers with lower wages.
Any other questions? Okay. I want to at this time acknowledge the presence and the support of the youngest, and I would say the brightest, Assembly member in the California State Assembly, Assembly member Sebastian Ridley Thomas from Los Angeles. He's here. Thank you, Assemblyman, for being here in support of the hardworking workers. Thank you. All right, this will adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much for your presence here today and your concern and interest. Thank you.